everyone, it's Charlene at Tranquil Tuesdays, and today I am going to continue our series on Pu'er tea. If you haven't watched the primer video, which is our overview primer on Pu'er tea, I suggest watching that first. So today I'm going to talk about the first in our series of common misconceptions or confusions around Pu'er tea. So today we're going to talk about the variety within Pu'er tea and how all Pu'er tea does not look the same, because it isn't the same. So maybe you are most familiar with the discs, the most distinctive sort of type of Pu'er tea presentation, which are Bing Cha. They're discs about this big, they're about 3/4 pound. Yeah, that's a very distinctive style of selling Pu'er tea, and that traces its history back to the ancient tea horse road, which was a trade route between ancient imperial China and Tibet. At that point, China needed horses in their military, and Tibet had horses, and Tibet loved the tea that China was making, so they were trading tea for horses, and they were pressing the tea into these round discs, and they could stack the discs into a pack and put that pack on the back of a mule, and then the mule would take this long journey along the ridge of the mountains from Yunnan to Tibet. So that was a practical storage and transportation solution for moving tea. Today, obviously, tea is not traded with mules. So it's really now out of a kind of a traditional aesthetic. And I think you could probably argue that it affects how the tea is aged if you're aging it, but we're going to talk about aging in another video. But really, it's more about an aesthetic. So it doesn't have to be in a round disc in order to be Pu'er. In fact, there are many other ways you might have also seen Pu'er. You might have seen a brick. There are tea bricks, which is a very ancient style of tea production in China. In fact, tea bricks predate loose leaf tea. Before most tea in China was produced as a tea brick, and nowadays primarily the only teas that are produced as tea bricks are teas in the hei cha, or the dark tea category. Some people categorize Pu'er as a subset of the dark tea hei cha category. I don't. I put it in its own category because there are some Pu'er teas that are not technically hei cha. We'll talk about that. And then there's also other shapes. Like, I'm sure, I don't know if you've seen them, but sometimes in tea shops they have like Pu'er tea that's been molded into little gourds or animals or fun little weird things. Those are kind of more novelty. And then the last way that you could see Pu'er tea is as loose leaf, like this. So loose leaf Pu'er tea is what would happen this is the tea before you press it into a disc or a brick. So I am going to prepare this tea first, and then we can talk more about Pu'er tea. So I'm using an Yixing Teapot, like I did in the first video, which is my grandfather, my yaya's Yixing Teapot. First, I'm going to heat everything up like we've been doing in all our other videos. This is like to prep all your pieces, like heating a pan before you start cooking. You probably heard me say that now 14 times. If you're getting sick of that analogy, I welcome new ones. Okay, so I've heated everything. Now I'm gonna add the tea. The actual proportions I will write down below. I'm probably gonna use around a tablespoon of tea. I kind of do it by eye in proportion to the vessel. Use a little bit more. It's a little darker here in the Tranquil Tuesdays virtual tea room today because it's storming outside in New York City. So it's darker and you might be hearing the rain. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is do a quick rinse. And with Pu'er tea, you wanna use pretty close to boiling. That's just in and out of there. Like I've said in other videos, the purpose of a rinse is to warm up your leaves so they can like really open up and release their flavors. I like to use the analogy of stretching before running, getting your muscles ready. All right. We have it heated up, rinsed, and now I'm gonna do, ooh, it smells good. All right. So you don't want to brew pu'er tea too long. You don't want to oversteep it. I'm gonna try to do between 30 seconds and a minute. And while we're waiting for that to brew, I just want to talk real quickly about what makes a pu'er tea. So like we said before, it can look like many different things. It could be a disc, it could be a brick, it could be a weird shape, it could be loose leaf. Those all are pu'er tea. So if there's so much variety in what it looks like, what actually makes it pu'er tea? So there are two main things. One, it needs to come from the cultivar of the tea plant Camellia sinensis assamica, which is one of two main varietals of the tea plant. We talked about this in a previous video. This varietal is a broader leaf. And the second thing is pu'er tea is a protected identity. So the tea must be grown and made in the Yunnan Xishuangbanna region. And I say protected identity, similar to like Champagne or Parma ham, is that there is a region and a method that defines it. Okay. So the other thing that I think might be confusing, or maybe not, I don't know, is about what pu'er tea looks like is, if you'll see in this brew, let's see if I can try to, it's pretty light, right? This is a pretty light colored, it's pretty light even for a black tea. I would say this is like similar more to like a Darjeeling or oolong color brew. And maybe the pu'er tea that you are most familiar with drinking is a brew that's like a dark, like musky, almost opaque black liqueur, which is the liquid after you brew a tea. And that is also a type of pu'er tea that is very common. And this is another type of pu'er tea where the brew is a lot lighter. And the differences between those two types, the really, really dark, milky one, the Sheng Pu'ers, and this one, which is a Sheng Pu'er. I'm going to talk more about that distinction in the next video. But, so that's another big distinction or variety of what pu'er tea looks like. It can be the color of the brew. It can be as light as this, and it can be as dark as like a, deep, dark, milky, opaque brew. And then the third distinction about within pu'er tea that I wanted to talk about is what kind of leaf the tea is. So like I said, it has to be from the Camellia sinensis assamica varietal, but there you could have a wild tea tree type, or you could have a cultivated tea bush leaf. I'm gonna try this and we'll talk a little more about that. Ooh, yeah, it's like the distinctive, smoky, like very earthy. I always taste kind of mushroomy, which I like. Not everyone likes that. It's just like really, I think the key word for pu'er is earthy. It's like a robust earthiness that most other teas don't have. That is so distinctive and unique and what people love about pu'er tea. So like I said, all pu'er tea must come from one varietal, but there are two main types within this varietal. Types meaning in Xishuangbanna there are tons of wild tea trees that have just been uncultivated and growing for hundreds of years. There are also cultivated rows kind of in more commercial growing. And you could get leaves from either type of those and they're both pu'er. So I hope you understood everything I said about the variety of what pu'er tea looks like. It could be a disc, it could be a brick, it could be loose leaf, it could have a light brew, it could have a really dark brew, it could be from an ancient tree, or it could be cultivated. So that's just a little glimpse in the breadth of pu'er tea. We're going to talk about 2 more topics in the next coming videos, and I will see you then. Thanks for watching.